Hello, everyone. I can see the light blinking. So we're going to wait a couple of minutes for people to get into the stream. And meanwhile, you can hear me. I can't hear you. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And I hope you enjoyed this talk as soon as we started. Also, I'm drinking cider. Yay. Hopefully everyone's been having a wonderful Saturday. It's been a really sunny day here, really lovely. I got to see some outside. I have braved the outside for you. I have put on pants. You don't see the pants, but I swear I have pants here. Not everyone maybe here has, but I have. So hopefully you appreciate this sacrifice I'm doing for you. How's it looking in the chat? Are we up? Quiet? Yes. Should we still wait? I have no sense of time anymore. I wonder if we'll be the generation that loses all sense of time. This waiting is doing a number on my nerves. Okay, we can start. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to this talk, this live talk about using social media in Larps. As this is a live stream, I do have a wonderful moderator, Eleanor Saita, who will be able to relay me your questions. So if you have any questions during the talk, feel free to shout them out in the chat, and I'll try to answer them in almost real time. And thank you for the attic for providing this wonderful studio space and lighting and sound and everything. But without further ado, let's get started. So a little bit about me. So my name is Eevi Korhonen. I've been LARPing since 2002, and I also work as a game designer in video games, specifically narrative design. And I've always been very interested in the kind of like experience design and narrative design, both kind of like in my work and then in my hobbies. And I'm also happen to be a bit of a social media and meme junkie, as showcased here through, this was the LARP shifting meme that went through Facebook a couple of years ago. And for all those photos, or most of the photos, I can thank Tuomas Puikkonen, Teemu Salminen, and Viktor Zaborowski. And why I'm doing this talk is I'm very interested in social media as a player verb. So we do use social media both as an in-game and off-game tool, but I am most excited about it as something that player can use inside the game world to support their game. So while there could be a whole talk about using it for like communicating, debriefing, and connecting with other players, this talk is not about that. It's about social media as an in-game tool. Also, this is not a talk about computers in LARPs. Computers in LARPs can be very amazing. You can do amazing stuff like AI NPCs, Android programming, hacking, databases, all that kind of stuff. But this is also not about that. This is about platforms and software, or simulating those to enable the feeling of being inside of social media. And because we need to do this point also, like, what is social media? I need to also define what I use it. What I mean when I use the term. So I'm defining it here as a widely accessible platform. So this, for example, means that it is widely accessible inside the game world, and you don't have to have some kind of hacker skill or any kind of like specific terminal maybe to engage with it, or those terminals are plentiful, so many people can use them simultaneously. And I also mean that the users are creating majority of the content, and majority of it is visible to everyone. So this would rule out also kind of like any kind of one-to-one mail systems. And also, last point, users have identifiable profiles and can interact with other profiles and the content they've created. And this would rule out many of the kind of one-to-many broadcast systems like radios, etc. And some of the examples I'm talking about will maybe bend these rules a bit, but this is roughly the framework I'm working with. So what is it good for? Why should you use social media in your LARP? So it can be very good for character exploration. kind of like what kind of colors, images do you choose to represent your character? Maybe there's quizzes or memes, anything like that is kind of low-key, you expressing and exploring what your character would do in a social media setting. Again, this can be achieved without social media, but it can be a good tool for that as well. Relationship building. So my favorite thing is like relationship statuses as they form and break up, liking the other person's comments and photos, directly or indirectly antagonizing other players. So anything that can kind of play out on social media. Again, this can be achieved without social media, but it's also great for that. Then, more getting into things that social media is very good for, is faking impossible events. A game that I personally ran had a plane disappearing in the sky, and we had like news articles about that. You can pretend to be at a fancy party by just setting up a photo, or you can fake the biggest newspaper in your country writing about your characters. So it is an option to kind of like bring the world to your game in a more concrete, immersive way. And then you can also make social information visible. Who likes who doesn't, who breaks community rules, and what consequences were there. Especially in a large game where maybe you only know a part of the characters who are part of your intimate group, you can get a sense of what's happening elsewhere. And then it's very good for asynchronous and aspatial play, which is just a fancy way of saying you can disconnect the play from time and space. So because I can make a post, and then even days later, people can still comment and like it. It doesn't require people to be online at the same time. They don't even have to be in the same space. So you can have campaigns that are very widely spread out if you're still using social media as one of the core tools for it. And this can also include making participants out of people who are not core players. So for example, having supporting players who are engaging as friends or family of the characters. And this is a way it's often used as an ease in and ease out of tool for games proper, like College of Wizardry, for example, or kind of like in between game space during campaign games. And then one final way, which I personally appreciate, it's a way for the game masters to see what's happening in the game in somewhat maybe real time. If they can't be present for those scenes, they can at least see how the players are reacting to those scenes. And then the negative sides of it, what can go wrong? Many things can go wrong with these things. So first thing is that players can and do often escalate and go off rails because we often treat social media a little bit as a kind of like an abstract space that doesn't exist, or we tend to forget things as we get super excited about, oh, I need to come up with some kind of exciting content, so let me blurt out this huge plot point that I wasn't meaning to. Or you escalate conflict, or you create new plot, people misinterpret stuff, and you can end up breaking the game, or at least disrupting in a way that affects everyone's game if they also are playing on that platform. Then you can also have hidden or hard to find information if there are groups or private messages that kind of like not every person has access to. Or if you're kind of like playing the long game, this kind of like social platform is available for months and months. Some of the information can be lost in the kind of like endless scroll, and finding it can be very hard. Then lost nuance. Most of these are text-based, so what did they mean by that? Conflicts can escalate without players even intending it to, because they will misread or misinterpret something that was said in just text. And then mixing in an off-game. So not all platforms are created equal when it comes to playing LARPs on social media. So if you're using existing platforms where players already have profiles, and then you're playing also inside that platform using those real-world accounts, it can feel maybe a bit like that you're mixing your real life and then the game life. Or if you're posting on a public platform, people can start to engage with your content who are not players, who are not aware that it's a game. And that can feel a little bit like players or kind of real people wandering into the middle of your LARP. Also, I'm very, very nervous because this is my first Solmukohta talk, so excuse me if I'm going very fast. Anyway, getting back to it, so people can also mix in and off-game information on the platform if you don't give them proper guidance. And cyberbullying, which can be like exciting thing to play on the platform, can start to feel very real and go very personal if people aren't kind of like checking in with each other, like, are you okay with this? Can I do this to your character? And then technical difficulties. So maybe on the day of your LARP, the servers get very slow or crash, or everyone's phones are running out of batteries. This is a real thing that can happen. Also, if you're using fake accounts on a platform, those might be discovered and banned. So be aware of if you plan to do this. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, it can be potentially excluding. Not everyone has access to a computer or a smartphone, and also accessibility to the visually impaired. For example, if things are very picture-based, or the platform doesn't support kind of like text-to-speech functionality. And then social games, like popularity games, can easily replicate real-world power structures. So maybe the popular player or mainstream players tend to become popular inside the game as well, even if their characters are not meant to be that. Then, the different species of social media. So a few things I'm going to highlight in this talk. I've kind of divided them roughly into these categories. So we have the non-electronic ones. So usually where you simulate a social media using a completely analog system. Then you have forums. You have messaging platforms like WhatsApp, Messenger, and Slack. Then you have posting platforms, which are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. And then custom platforms like Kin. And I would do the pros and cons of each platform, but as I was doing more research on this talk, I realized that this has already been done. In an earlier Solmukohta talk or Knutpunkt talk in 2014, I recommend checking it out. There's still relevant stuff in that presentation. And instead of that, I'm going to give you more concrete examples from mostly Finnish LARPs. So I did ask more examples from LARPers' best friends group. Thanks to everyone who provided examples, but because my format is very visual and there was not enough screenshots, I declined some of them. Also, my criteria for the social media ruled out some of them, and then some overlapped with the existing examples. But if you do have examples that are not mentioned here, you probably do, please feel free to mention in the chat to others. So first, Halat Hisar by Kaisa Kangas and Johanna Pettersson, played here in 2013 and replayed 2016. And they had this wonderful board that was representing Twitter, so people could just attach images and write, just using markers, come up with their own Twitter handles. And I really love that this actually created kind of like a social center point. While social media tends us to distance one another, this created an actually kind of like shared community board that people could gather around. And also this photo is by Tuomas Puikkonen. But yeah, I really, really love this. Like if you don't want people to be on their kind of like mobile phones or computers during the game, I think this is still a wonderful way of incorporating social media into your game. Then Koronaatio.info, which translates as crook.info. This was a City LARP campaign in 2015 and 2016 by all of these people here. And they used forums. And the idea that in this LARP, all the players, or most of the players, were these underworld small-time criminals or bigger-time criminals. And they had this closed-off forum where they actually exchanged information, traded stuff like selling guard stuff or buying old Bibles and candles. And then this one, bachelor party, pre-party at a specific place. So this was a way for the players to communicate both during the game and probably more appropriately before and between the games. Then Bloody Hell in Helsinki, another City LARP campaign by Ella-Lotta Kuusisto in 2014 and 2016. So this was a City LARP about vampires and mages and other nefarious creatures existing inside Helsinki. There was no official guideline on using social media, but the players kind of like spontaneously created that. So we would create our own Twitter profiles using usually BHH underscore to find each other easily, and using sometimes also the hashtag BHH Helsinki. We also sometimes fake Twitter inside our closed Facebook groups by kind of like creating threads like, oh, this is a Twitter thread, for those who kind of like didn't want to engage or just were too tired not to kind of like go over Twitter. And this was us posting publicly inside Twitter, which like in hindsight feels like, oh shit, what if people actually read that tweet and were like, oh wait, there's explosions. So explosions, craziness of blood, and all that's before the fight night has even started. And I realized I posted that on public platform, and I feel very smart about that. And then Baltic Warriors, kind of like campaign/series of games in 2015. You will see quite a lot of Mike Pohjola in this presentation, also by Sarita Sharma, Hanke Heisen, Mike Pohjola, Joona Pettersson, Cecilia Dolk, and Kaisa Kangas. They also use Twitter and Instagram posting there publicly. And one good thing that they used consistently, I think, was using the hashtag to find the content that was relevant to the gamers, the players. And it's a very good option if you're using general platforms with no grouping options. Have a hashtag that can unite all the players and makes it easier to find that information, even potentially years afterwards, or unless you want to delete it. Then, microhard, the startup. This is a very fascinating example made by Aino Haavisto and Adamaria Hyvärinen. So this was a game where the game was about a startup in an office setting aimed at LARPers who were interested in learning coding using Scratch. So this aimed at giving the players opportunity to perform a skill that they didn't have in real life. And they basically had the players use Scratch to code during the game, but then the kind of like interesting part was using Slack to simulate all forms of social media and also Google. So the players who were members of the startup would have their family members, their friends, their coworkers bother them on Slack as a kind of like, attempt to distract them from this very important task that they were supposed to do. So one person had their 3-year-old just kind of like randomly mash the keyboard in another chat and kind of like trying to get their parents' attention. And they could also use contact the game masters and say like, Google this person, and the game masters would reply to them like, this is what you find on Google about this person. So I find this super fascinating kind of like take on like, you can just take one like messaging platform and kind of have it simulate all different kind of like social media environments that these people were in. And also I really love that this game tried to kind of like also have this educational part. So they also provided this kind of like help through the GM channels on kind of like the coding tasks that the player had. So extremely fascinating. And also there's a link here. I will also post these slides later, so you can access this link. But Roolipelilogi, the Finnish blog about role-playing games, has a write-up on the whole LARP. It's in Finnish, but hopefully Google Translate will do some of the hard work in translating it. But yeah, very, very fascinating, and I recommend everyone to check out the blog post about it. Then College of Wizardry by Chopak Studios and now Company P, running since 2015. So this uses Kin as an optional pre- and post-game tool, and any content posted there is treated as non-canon. Because this is something that players don't have to engage in, any kind of like plots or information that is created there is treated as non-canon for the people who are not participating in pre-play or using that medium. But it's, as you can see, Choha book is how it's called in the game, and it's treated as this kind of like Facebook for Witchers. And it has very many of the same functionalities as Facebook. So you can declare that you're in a relationship, you're no longer in a relationship, you can write comments, post pictures, a lot of the kind of like basic functionalities that Facebook provides. But the upside is that it is customizable and it is closed from outsiders. So only players can join this platform. And when I first used it, I was kind of like, I love this, I want to use it myself. And that's what I did. So Piiri was another City LARP campaign that I did together with Janina was the main person behind it, together with Sara Kanan and Teemu Salminen and me. And we ran it in 2017 in 4 installments, and we used it as an in-game tool, not just between the games, but during the games. So here you can see, again, Mika Pohjola. Because this was set in kind of like modern-day Finland, where kind of like 3 families were discovering their family's secret past and kind of like very sort of like soap opera type plots. It was, I think, very good choice for that LARP. And we also had this kind of like low gothic horror elements. So we actually had also hauntings, very few hauntings, but a couple of hauntings happening through that platform. And also, if you're interested in using kin for your LARP, you can go to getkin.org or contact Thomas Mertz, who is the mastermind behind this. And he will appreciate your donations. You can use it for free, but he prefers also to get donations because he does it as a volunteer. Oh, and I added this because we witnessed during the game a real life social media meltdown, as Mika's character had a little bit of a fit of not being selected as the new CEO of the company, and he tried to then delete this very rude message that he posted and failed at it magnificently. And I love memes, so of course I had to put that. Sorry, Mika. There was an additional thing. It was also part of the game was documented as a series of logs by Sakke from Finland, who's a fictional character that exists in a couple of Finnish LARP campaigns. He's played by Valtteri Niskavar, and he produced all this content. I'm not going to show these videos, I'm just showing a few screenshots. But this was very fascinating because one of the plots was a family painting that everyone believed to be cursed. So the Ghostbusters, as this group was known inside the game, contacted Sakke from Finland, and he came in as an NPC to kind of like investigate this painting together with them. And then he recorded them. And these videos are unfortunately unlisted, so you won't be able to see them, but they were available for the players of the campaign. And because we love the gothic horror / scary aspect of this game, we also used this to kind of like build up the paranatural component. And this was just kind of like a fake screenshot created. I'm not sure you can see probably from this with this picture quality, but there is this kind of like humanoid shape in the top right corner of that. Okay, so what would make your LARP particularly suitable for using a social media platform in your LARP? These are not necessary components to have, but they usually kind of like support having social media in your LARP. So LARPs that have heavy emphasis on social plots, kind of like, as I mentioned, Piiri had a kind of like very soap opera, very kind of like dramatic like plots and revelations about lost children or found children and pregnancies and that kind of stuff. So it was a very kind of good platform for having these moments. And we did drop a plane out of the sky for that one. I really like that one. Then LARPs where players have a lot of input on their characters and their plots. This is just because if they have to check everything from the game master, it just kind of like slows down a lot of this interaction on the platform. So it is helpful if they can kind of like players have the trust of the game masters to kind of like do their own thing. And then LARPs that have either a very familiar or a malleable world. So either you're doing a modern day setting where you know kind of like, okay, these things are possible within or not possible within our game world, or it's very malleable and everyone can invent things as they go along. Or, again, modern day LARPs that are spatially or temporally spread out, because that's where social media, I think, makes most sense. I am talking to you over social media right now because we can't be in the same room together. And then LARPs that allow fake interaction with real-world phenomena or people. So, for example, for Piiri, we created the couple of like pages for famous newspapers, and people could kind of like interact and create content using also those so they could write articles about themselves. using those pages. But if you are putting these things in your game, it's good to watch out for these stumbling blocks. So check your design and your chosen platform for potential that you're excluding your players or creating anxiety. Because one thing that these things easily do, if the platform is optional, or if it's not optional, that people feel like they have to kind of like perform there, or they feel like they're not doing enough, and it usually feeds into this kind of like, inferiority complex, or kind of like pre-LARP anxiety, pre-LARP lore. So everyone else is doing it better than me. They're posting all this cool content. They're posting all the time. Why am I not posting all the time? There must be something wrong with me, and I'm a bad player. So be mindful of kind of like how you're presenting the social media as a tool to your players, and support them. And kind of like, not everyone maybe knows how to use Slack or any kind of your chosen platform. So consider workshopping these things. And also, if these are expected to be used during the game, consider providing loan devices for people who don't have these from their own pocket. Then set clear boundaries on what is permissible on the social media. So can the players create new information? Can they create plots? Can they advance existing plots? Can they escalate conflicts, and to what level? And again, as mentioned earlier, cyberbullying can feel very real. Like real conflict in games can very easily feel very anxiety and panic inducing. So it is very good to have ground rules on kind of like, before you bully someone, maybe check in with that player if that's okay. And then have a member of your crew, or keep an eye on the platform, or assign trusted, if you have a very large group, assign trusted admins to keep an eye on things in case things start to blow up. And it's very good to have, if there are several close groups, to have someone in each of those keeping an eye. Again, if there's possibility of hidden information, and because of privacy issues, that you can't just see everyone's messages, that you are aware if something is starting to go wrong. And then I did this talk actually a couple of years ago. So this was something that wasn't a thing back then, but since I kind of like revisited this topic when I was redoing my slides, there's now happening also LARPing on a social media platform. And I could probably do a whole new talk about this, especially now that we're living in the plague times, but I didn't have time to get into this. But I find this super fascinating, and I'm going to show you a little clip from LARP House, aka Azrai's talk or vlog that they did for YouTube some time ago. And now this is going to get exciting on how this video is going to work. And excuse the audio quality because this is going to come through my laptop. So I'm just going to show a couple of minutes on basically how these kind of like TikTok LARPs work, and trying to get rid of all the ads. So this is a recap of a story that they did on TikTok using with other users using the Mafia OC tag, and damn it, technical difficulties. So hopefully this will now work. Please.
Rockwell is a lounge singer who sold her soul to the devil indefinitely to pay a debt that her parents owed the mob. She has a good voice, a good memory, and a freakishly high pain tolerance, so she sings at the club/headquarters, but also keeps her eye on things and uses code and songs to warn her people when stuff is about to go down. Which means she has to know a lot about who's who and their relationships and how things run. More of a spy than a mobster, she has been declared baby and loves her friends more than anything. So much so that when she finds her dear friend's best boy looking bruised like an old banana in JJ's place, she helps facilitate his great escape because Elisa is on the run and can't really do anything herself. Shortly after this escape, Ruby is taken in by the law. Was it an anonymous tip called in to punish her, or just a coincidence? We don't know. It's probably nothing. Ruby has had close encounters with good old police chief George before, but unfortunately for detectives, she has a spotless track record of not being a dang snitch. But things are different this time. Enter Detective Yikes. End part 1. What's going on with Ruby Rockwell?
Yes. So if you were not able to make out any of that, I highly recommend that you do watch this YouTube video. Can we get out? We can get out. So the dang art of TikTok by Larp House. So if you were not able to make sense of that, go and watch that video. And now we're out of the full screen mode. Can we? We can't. What? Okay, we're going to go through with this. So, to conclude, some thoughts about the now and the future. They're not maybe the most original thoughts. These are just kind of like things that didn't fit anywhere else in this presentation. So, is this really just text roleplay 2.0? So, I think the difference between text roleplay and this is that social media can be embedded inside the game. And it can enable us more kind of like embellished content and interaction than just text roleplay in one big Google Doc can. And it is helpful for increasing this kind of like 360 immersion demand, but we're not all rich or the props, or we don't have the locations or time to get to the locations. So it is much easier to pretend to be someone rich and powerful and famous just by kind of like clever setups of photos, or just like stealing some photos of rich people's mansions and posting as your own, like, oh, this is my second summer house. So I think it's fantastic for that. Social media as a form of documentation. It would be lovely to kind of like keep hold of all this data afterwards, but how do you capture all of it, especially again with the problem of the hidden information? A lot of these platforms or kin allows you to kind of like save your own data from that before the kind of like instance is closed down. But if you're using public platforms and you maybe want to even delete that information afterwards, it would be very nice if people saved this stuff, because it is also part of the legacy that we leave. Again, problem is also like if you're using public platforms, you might be sharing this content with the rest of the world who don't have context that this is just to make believe. Again, if you're talking about explosions or killing people on a public platform, there might be consequences. And then GDPR, who owns the content? Who can store it? These are imaginary people, so I guess they belong to their makers, but it is a much more complex topic than I can get into at this moment. Could we live tweet a game to a larger audience? Even if it was just an audience of NPCs or other LARPers, could we live tweet a game to a non-LARPing audience and have it make sense? I think it's a fascinating topic. I don't have answers, but this is a question maybe to you. Or have you live tweeted your game to a larger audience? Then, is there a place for social media in historical or non-tech settings? So mostly I've been mentioning games where technology exists in the world, but I've been wondering about potential genre mashups or modern interpretations or mixed history renditions like the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which are basically taking Jane Austen novels and putting them into vlog formats. So, again, could we do this? I don't know. Is it a smart idea? I don't know. I'm just here asking questions. And then finally, I guess the one that's kind of like very easy to think of, could there be LARP about social media dystopia? I'm pretty sure there are. I ran out of time to do research on this. Last time I was just like lazily asking the question, and now I had months of time to research this, and I didn't. But I think it would be kind of like very easy to maybe simulate a platform for propaganda and state media control, where maybe your social status and quality of life is determined by your popularity and compliance to the system, aka the Black Mirror episode. And then there's also a more fun take from communities, app development, and condiments, if you want to look for potential inspirations on how kind of like things can go wrong in that kind of system. And that was my talk. And there's still like 10 minutes left, so if you have questions, thoughts, tweets, I am now here available for them. And thank you. I am imagining applause in my head. I can do a merry jig. I can't dance.
I don't think we have questions yet. Somebody's typing those.
Okay. I will just kick back and drink cider. Actually, I'll leave this slide on you. No. Oh, it still won't go full screen. No. Technical difficulties. Okay, if there's no questions, I'm just going to end this talk. And thank you, everyone. And I'm hoping to talk to you later on Facebook. Bye-bye.